The production of Christopher Nolan's latest film required the development of custom IMAX cameras, triggered a measurable surge in Mediterranean tourism, and sparked intense geopolitical backlash over its choice of filming locations. This is the Odyssey, a $250 million production led by Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, and Tom Holland. Nolan presents ancient Greece as a space of mud and trauma, using the conventions of a hyper-realistic psychological thriller rather than the traditional flourishes of a sword and sandals fantasy. It is a deliberate disruption of modern cinema that abandons typical blockbuster tropes to focus on the grit of human failure. While the scale is new, the subject matter is not. Christopher Nolan has been building toward an adaptation of this poem for his entire three-decade career. The nonlinear trauma of Memento, the search for home in Dunkirk, and the apocalyptic guilt of Oppenheimer all converge in this 3,000-year-old story. The film begins by stripping the romanticism from the Trojan War. The conflict is framed as a brutal dispute over commercial trading routes, rather than a heroic rescue of a kidnapped queen. Nolan frames the Trojan horse as the ancient precursor to the atomic bomb, a technological rupture designed to end a war that instead shatters the commander who conceived it. Matt Damon's Odysseus is a commander drowning in the guilt of unleashing a fire and suffering that destroyed an entire civilization. In this version, the threats Odysseus faces at sea are the internal psychological echoes of that mass destruction, the price of being complicit in the end of a civilization. To mirror this internal state, the film adopts a shattered timeline, using a cubist montage structure to jump between memory and the present moment. This non-linear approach reframes the mythic lotus flowers as a psychological coping mechanism to numb his war memories. The fragmentation of the story acts as a functional tool, simulating the deeply fractured psyche of a man who can no longer find the soul he sold to survive. Nolan captured this visceral experience by shooting the entire 3-hour runtime exclusively on physical 70mm IMAX film cameras. The crew zigzagged uphill through 6 countries to capture practical reality in the wild, adhering to a strict mandate that rejected digital green screens. This insistence on authentic locations led to real-world controversy, including Argist protests over filming in the disputed territory of Western Sahara. The grueling nature of the shoot blurred the lines between the mythic journey of the protagonist and the physical labor of the filmmaking process. The story reaches its climax as Odysseus removes his royal armor to return home disguised as an anonymous beggar. There is no triumphant battle to close the film. Instead, the ending focuses on a broken human trying to piece a shattered family back together. The narrative defines victory not through the conquest of enemies, but through the survival of trauma and the rediscovery of human connection. This interpretation of the poem has had a measurable impact on the real world, driving a documented boom in tourism to historical Mediterranean sites. The film functions as the focal point for Nolan's career, pulling together the disparate threads of nonlinear time and survival found throughout his earlier work. The global response to this production suggests that modern audiences are turning to ancient myths to process their own anxieties, their geopolitical guilt, and the search for home.